Passion, creativity, ambition, all for naught if upper management's made a bad call. Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're taking a look at 10 great games ruined by bad business decisions.
Alright, you lousy mugs, time to earn your supper.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
For this list, we're examining what we feel to be the most egregious and disappointing instances in which those in charge of a studio or development team made creative choices which ended up negatively impacting a given project. Sometimes it's a matter of integrating bothersome money-making mechanics. Other times, it's something much more insidious. But always, the result is a game that's 100% worse off. I'm Todd Habercorn, a frequent player of games that involve interesting business decisions, such as randos schizophrenic weapon skins that cost $9 a pop, #Rainbow6, or $100 haircuts in sports games. I've got my esports bib on and am ready to chow down on this list.
Let's get ready to Mojo!
Number 10. Keys and Event Passes. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Oh!
Back in its early access days, the unrefined yet engaging design of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds earned it a fair bit of attention. Folks were drawn to its stripped-down take on player versus player combat, with the prospect of parachuting onto an island and surviving as long as possible seeming quite enticing. Alas, the early wave of success that PUBG experienced soon gave way to controversy when the game's creators added a paid event pass and various loot boxes tied to keys worth real-world currency. Many players complained of how these additions served to disincentivize regular play in favor of spending out-of-game money to progress, thus undermining both the effort and enjoyment of the player base, and increased the odds of a money paper cut on the side of the developer, as they were counting all those extra bills they got from the loot boxes. Number 9. Loot boxes in a single-player game. Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Much of what made Shadow of Mordor compelling as a sandbox experience and as a reworking of Tolkien's original fiction carried over into its sequel. Its combat still proved fluid and energetic, its nemesis system a clever way to keep the player engaged with recurring adversaries, its world an intriguing blend of reimagined lore and familiar iconography.
This is how we conquer Middle-earth, lads.
What players didn't find so charming, though, was how Shadow of War saw the introduction of paid loot boxes into the existing gameplay loop. Suddenly, orcs and equipment gained in moment-to-moment play felt less significant for folks and more like a tiresome chore, considering the more convenient, if expensive, alternative.
The Grave Walker is down.
Number 8. Losing Kojima. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Years of waiting and anticipation gave way to widespread celebration in mid-2015 as Hideo Kojima's final contribution to the Metal Gear saga hit store shelves. From the expansion of base building and recruiting mechanics to the more slick and intense combat, the Phantom Pain delivered on many fronts and proved quite exceptional. Alas, one recurrent complaint was focused on the half-finished, oddly structured narrative, said to be a consequence of publisher Konami's changing corporate culture and alleged cruel treatment of Kojima Productions. Reports speak of horrific working conditions and malicious attempts by Konami to erase Kojima and company's contributions, culminating in Kojima's eventual departure. Sounds like some company needs a swat on the hiney.
Mr. Kojima had every intention of being with us tonight. But unfortunately, he was informed by a lawyer representing Konami just recently that he would not be allowed to travel to tonight's awards ceremony to accept any awards.
Number 7. Bad release timing. Titanfall 2.
Visual clear. I've got good tone.
All the talent and creative drive in the world can't save you if the release schedule isn't on your side. So it came to pass that Titanfall 2, generally praised for its enjoyable campaign mode and refinements on the previous game's mechanics, fell short of sales expectations.
Your journey ends here, pilot. The skies belong to me.
This is owed primarily to the game's competition at launch. It was wedged between Electronic Arts' other major 2016 shooter, Battlefield 1, and Activision's Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. With multiple games belonging to one genre vying for the same audience in the same relative period, it's only a matter of time before one of them falters. And that's a damn digital shame.
Brace for impact.
Number 6, prioritizing DLC over patches. Batman: Arkham Origins.
It appears the game is over before it even begins.
I'm not playing games, Slade.
Even before launch, this WB Games Montreal-produced installment of the Batman Arkham series had the weight of expectations bearing down on it. Arkham Origins sought to deliver a similarly thrilling open-world experience as its predecessor Arkham City, but with greater emphasis on exploring the developing antagonism between Batman and all his delicious foes.
You are not gonna like what comes next.
A sound and reasonable effort to be sure, except that the game also launched with severe bugs and glitches, which rendered portions impossible to complete. Adding insult to injury, Warner Brothers made it crystal clear that patching said issues was less important to them than working on downloadable content for the game, leaving Arkham Origins in its compromised state.
Show's over, boys.
Number 5, Real Money Auction House, Diablo 3. From the beginning, the Diablo series has centered the collection of loot by players as the main draw of the experience, with the hack-and-slash combat and dungeon exploration feeding into that aspect. While it's understandable that developer Blizzard would want to shake things up with Diablo 3, their aim to provide a space for above-board trading proved all too easy to exploit.
Your grave awaits.
Enter the auction houses, digital marketplaces where items could be traded for virtual gold or real money. Players complained of how the houses served to undercut the appeal of loot gathering and created severe balance issues, to say nothing of those who wanted to use houses for personal profit. Number 4, over-marketing, No Man's Sky. Trust matters in the marketing and sale of a game, and it's hard to regain once lost. Hello Games experienced this firsthand when producing their procedurally generated space exploration sim, No Man's Sky. Various interviews and previews of the game had Hello Games co-founder Sean Murray commenting on the development process with conflicting and muddled details on what would be featured in the final work.
Can you run into other people, other players on the game?
Yes, but the chances of that are incredibly rare, just because of the size of what we're building.
This led to an intense backlash once No Man's Sky was actually released, as players slowly realized that certain features teased or alluded to were absent from the experience. Even with later patches and updates introducing a number of the promised game elements, many folks aren't inclined to forgive or forget.
Will you be able to play with your friends? Yeah.
Number 3, Censorship, Mortal Kombat SNES version. An older case, perhaps, but no less valuable when discussing questionable business decisions in gaming. The original Mortal Kombat for arcades found success in courting controversy, leaning into its perception as a deliberately provocative work packed with then outrageous amounts of violent action. While most ports of the game largely retained this focus on gleeful brutality, the Super Nintendo incarnation instead omitted the more gruesome imagery due to Nintendo's desire for family-friendly content. This would end up backfiring when the Sega Genesis version of Mortal Kombat proved more popular, thanks in no small part to the inclusion of the expected blood and gore. Toasty!
Finish him.
Number 2, Mismanagement, Mass Effect Andromeda.
We don't have a lot of options, Ryder. Maybe you'll prove your father right.
They're only human after all. In production since 2012 and boasting a budget of at least $100 million, I would have done it for half that, Mass Effect Andromeda had a lot riding on it being a stellar product. Instead, the road to launch was paved with poor decision-making on the management level, from overly ambitious goals to pushing for use of the ill-suited Frostbite engine.
People might get the wrong idea.
Stories came to light of essential team members leaving mid-development, shifts in design priorities, and even the scrapping of plans for procedural world generation. The result was a game that, on release, proved underwhelming to many people, and which may well have done long-term damage to the Mass Effect franchise.
Nothing around here makes any sense.
Number 1. Pay-to-win loot boxes. Star Wars Battlefront 2.
This is just the beginning. When people see what we've done here, that terror will spread throughout the galaxy.
This is just depressing. Many folks eagerly awaited the launch of 2017's Star Wars Battlefront 2, feeling secure in the belief that it would successfully make amends for its initially content-light predecessor. Unfortunately, hope would give way to fear. Fear led to anger. Anger led to contempt, once players learned of the integration of loot crates into the game's multiplayer economy.
Let's take a walk.
These crates made easier to access with, a little bit of the do-re-mi cash infusion, contained in-game currency and resources which could offer tangible bonuses to online play and speed up progression. Not even Electronic Arts representatives trying to frame the crates as a positive incentive for play distracted from the calculated cynicism and gross psychological manipulation of the whole affair.
May the Force be with you.
Check out these other great clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.